Welcome you to our penultimate panel discussion for the day. This is titled Sustainability, the Wave of the Future Across the Alcobev Supply Chain. It's moderated by Priyanka Save, co-founder of Zill Wines. Priyanka, could I request you on stage, please? We've got as panelists Ms.Elizabeth Yorke, the founder of Saving Grains. Elizabeth, can you come on stage, please? Dr.T.N.Bhavanishankar, a veteran of the industry and a director of the Schevaran Innovation Center. And finally, Narayan Manepally, also the chairperson of the Brews and Spirits Advisory Committee and the co-founder of Geist Brewing. Have a great one, Priyanka. Over to you. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I think the sessions have been a bit spilt over onto each other. So we'll try to keep it short and interesting. So who are here, I just hope, I was just telling him yawn and yawn back at us and we yawn back at you. So let's not do that. So the topic that we are going to be covering today is sustainability, and there's a reason. I think we've got like panelists really apt here covering all the aspects of our industry. Just quickly giving you an introduction. So I am Priyanka Save. I'm the co-founder and the winemaker at Zill Wines, where we manufacture wines from fruits, not grape, like, we are doing pineapple, we're doing mango, we're doing chiku, which is like, really local. And apart from that, the reason why I'm here today as the moderator, and which I didn't speak earlier today, is that I am also a green building professional and working into this space for almost 12 years in energy audits and across, not only across the supply chain, but also in the manufacturing segment. So I'll just introduce you to the panelists here today. We have Dr.T.N.Bhavanishankar, who is the director at Schevaran Innovation Center. He has over 30 years of experience in the distilling space and comes with a wide experience, especially in molasses spirits, right, sir? And he has also been awarded by Karnataka State Vigyan Parishad for his book, that is Role of Microbes in Daily Life and Insight. So welcome to this session, sir. Very interesting story I read this morning. Someone who started off with a $65 lunch and beer lessons in Portland, all the way to Bengaluru to co-found Geist Brewing. And I think he's the story of grit and determination, someone who has seen the craft beer revolution in the country. He's Mr.Narayan Manepally, who is the CEO of Geist Brewing. The third panelist is Chef Elizabeth Yorke. I think she's someone who truly represents innovation in sustainable brewing, as well as getting carbon negative food products. That is something really, really new. Using spent grains and converting them into food, bread. I just tasted the flour, the thepla, the khakra that you made, and it was really, if you all happen to walk this side at the Geist Brewing counter, please do try that. And that's really interesting. Something made out of spent grain, a carbon negative food product. That is something you all must taste. So welcome Elizabeth. So let's straight move on to my question. This one is specific to brewing. Obviously, fermentation is something that happens in distilleries as well. But specific to brewing, we're using a lot of fresh water. Water consumption is really, really high, and then obviously we're using treated water. So then there is some wastage that happens in there. Now, when we are looking at the supply chain, there are various aspects, but the major aspect here is water, because it's an essential resource, and how we are tackling it. That is somewhere we have to. It is a major part of sustainable solutions at breweries. So, Mr. Narayan, would you please, tell us what measures at Geist are you guys taking to save water as a resource and bring in a sustainable solution for the same?
Thanks, Priyanka. Can you guys hear me okay? Yeah. So I think the first thing I wanted to say is that sustainability is a mindset, right? You have to really give a shit. Pardon my French, but the thing is, you really have to care in order for you to make a difference. I think we said the land that we're on, where the brewery is built, we're going to leave this place better than how we found it. So for us, we realized, when I was in the US, I realized for every liter of beer you produce, great breweries use about, breweries that are eco-conscious use about between 3.5 to 4.5 liters of water for every liter of beer they produce. And there was also the other extreme, where something like 11 to 12 liters of water were used for every liter of beer produced. I even remember walking into a brewery in Portland where this water is plentiful, and they were effectively cooling their fermentation tanks with water and literally draining that water into the drain, because water there is plentiful and it was abundant and it was literally free. And when I walked in there, I said, if ever we open a brewery in India, we will never do this, because for us, water is the next gold, because everybody here, in our state especially, suffers from acute water shortage. So we decided that we'll do a few things right from the outset. Number one, we are 100% rainwater harvesting. Number two, we have a really expensive sewage treatment and effluent treatment plant. So all of the water that comes out of our effluent treatment, comes out of our brewery, is treated through this effluent treatment plant. And the one decision we took was, we will do everything we possibly can not to cheat. And we will comply by KSPCB norms, Karnataka State Pollution Control Board norms, to the fullest possible extent. So we spent 61 lakhs on just the effluent treatment plant, where we have not only USB reactors, not only collection tanks, pH neutralization, etc., but we also built in something called a DTRO system, which is a disk RO system, which is different from, technology is the same, but the process is different from the regular RO. So we actually get absolutely crystal clear water, which we then reuse for washing our dishes in the beer garden, in our beer garden kitchen. The effluent that comes out of our toilets, our kitchens, and the beer garden toilets are all processed through a sewage treatment plant using eco-friendly chemicals, which is neem and moringa and neem seeds. We basically have that water is used to then, it's organically very rich, and it's used to water all of our plants in the beer garden, as well as sending that water out to a farmer that uses that to grow not only his vegetables, but also will be supplying vegetables to us at our beer garden. So we're trying to create a closed loop system. All of the sludge that comes out from our systems in both the effluent treatment plant and the sewage treatment plant goes through what's called as a screw press, and it is then used for composting, and we create fertile soil out of it. So this is expensive, it's not easy to do, and it's a process of continuous iteration, but this is a mindset that you need to have in order to implement these kinds of things. So we are what we call near zero liquid discharge in our brewery, because we believe water is important.
One more thing to just add on to that, since we are talking about water resource now. So the brewing process, it relies on intensive agricultural practices of, say, growing barley or hop, obviously most of which is imported. We were just talking about local ingredients. So do you use any local ingredients in what you are making? Or do you think we could replace certain ingredients, or we could blend with the existing ingredient to reduce our carbon footprint when it comes to the beer that we're consuming?
I think it's a really interesting question. I mean, every time you buy an agri-commodity from abroad, you're effectively importing water, or they are exporting water. And clearly for us, we want to use as much local products as we can. As far as the craft industry and craft beer is concerned, we have not reached the levels that we need, at least as far as that we want, from the industry for a consistent, say, a malted barley or for hops of a particular quality, for example. We use, of course, we use local broken wheat in many of our brews. We use coriander that's grown obviously in India. But we are trying to do some blends. We've done a bunch of experiments. We haven't been happy with the results. But the game is always to find the most that we can use from our country. At this point in time, we're nowhere close to it. Hopefully, we'll get there someday.
Thank you, sir. Just want to give you an insight. I don't want to steal the thunder from the brewing industry, but the wine industry, we are 57% more efficient than a brewery. Just making a point. Not that I want to just bring it up. But of course, coming to you, Dr. Bhavanishankar, this is something that we discussed on email as well. Be it the process of fermentation, moving on to distillation. So be it fruit or be it grain, right? There's a certain amount of energy that is spent. And certain amount of energy being spent, obviously, which we are able to cater using some energy efficient measures. But what about the waste generation? Because that is something that is not being talked about as much. We had this session earlier in the morning where, in the afternoon, which they said, they got some bunch of coffee waste coming from what they were brewing. And some such similar waste that is generated both during the process of fermentation as well as distillation. So what measures could be taken in that respect to reduce that waste or to offset it and replace it and reuse it?
Good evening to you all. See, in the distilleries, water consumption is too high, something like beer industry. For every liter of alcohol produced, 10 liters of water is consumed. And almost same quantity will come out as the effluent, that's the wastewater. And distillery industry waste is one of the highest BOD contributor, biological oxygen contributor. That means the organic pollutant is maximum in distillery effluent. And treatment is also very difficult. But as the technology evolved, so there are different ways of treating this and recovering the fuel from that. So that is called biomethanation. So you treat this effluent, distillery effluent, which is very high in organic matter, low pH, and when it comes out, it is too hot because it's coming out of the distillation unit. So that will be around 90 degrees centigrade, 90 to 95 degrees centigrade temperature. So first and foremost thing is to recover that heat. Instead of letting it out, cooling it and wasting that energy, that can be recovered by passing through a heat exchanger and heat the water that goes to the boiler to generate the steam. So this way, we are saving some amount of energy by just recovering the heat from the distillery effluent, hot distillery effluent. That's number one. Number two, then this highly acidic, hot effluent which is partially cooled, further cooled to normal temperature and taken into a big reactor which is called biomethanation reactor, where it is microbiologically treated with a kind of bacteria called anaerobic bacteria. So these bacteria act upon the organic matter present in the effluent and generate biogas rich in methane. Around 55% methane will be there and around 44% carbon dioxide and traces of other gases like sulfur dioxide and hydrogen sulfide, things like that. So this gas can be used in the boiler as a fuel to generate the steam. So first we have preheated the water that goes to the boiler, and secondly we use the biogas produced from the distillery effluent and use it as a fuel in the boiler. So this is how we can reduce the fuel consumption and carbon footprint in two attacks. And apart from this, there is a technology further improved. With some additional supplement fuel, we can generate high pressure steam, high pressure dry steam, and this steam can be used in a steam turbine and generate the electricity which will totally take care of the electricity requirement in the distillery. So with little bit of additional fuel, you are generating the steam, and that steam is generated by the treatment of the effluent using the biogas. So this is how, and so your electricity consumption drastically brought down. This way, our carbon footprint will be drastically comes down. So this is in the primary distillery. When you say distillery, there is a misnomer. Even a liquor bottling plant is also called distillery. It's a misnomer. It's not a distillery. It's just, distillery means where distillation happens. So we call even the bottling plant as distillery, which is a misnomer. But going by common parlance, I would say that is called the bottling plant, or the where liquor is bottled. So how we do water saving, energy saving is another aspect. So here, one water saving measure is when you have to use water for washing the bottle or rinsing the bottle. If you are using fresh bottles, brand new bottles, you have to rinse the bottles. If it is second-hand bottle, if it is pre-washed, again you have to only rinse it. So when you rinse, this water was going waste. But it is only a rinse to the new bottles or pre-washed bottles. It won't carry any chemical or much of organic matter. So this can be recycled or reused by filtration. If you filter, all the particles which are washed off from the bottle can be removed, and that same water can come back for the rinsing of the bottle again. So this is how we can reduce the water consumption. And second aspect is you can harvest the rainwater. It is already done in Bacardi plant where I was heading the manufacturing earlier. Now they have implemented that rainwater harvesting, by which 10% of the total consumption is saved. So in addition to that, we know we are a solar energy rich country. So solar panels have been put on the roof, and this is saving right now 80% of the electricity requirement.
Sir, I'd like to interrupt you here with respect to solar. Do you know any facility like a distillery or brewery who is using solar, especially when it comes to distillation or heating? Because what majorly they use thermal energy, they use coal, they use briquettes. So is solar that effective? Would it give us the results that we desire, or like being from this industry and being from the we've been designing solar panels, and most of it kind of use it as a secondary source, but could we use it as a primary source, because the amount of heat required is really high when it comes to breweries and distilleries?
Yeah, for distillation, a lot of heat is required to generate the steam, but the electricity alone cannot give the required quantity of heat. With supplementary fuel, we can do that, but I don't think anybody has done it, to my knowledge, anybody has done it in the Indian industry. But as I said, it is used for bottling plant operation in Bacardi. They have implemented that. It is about to be commissioned now, and it is not distillery. The company where I am associating with now, Schevaran Laboratories, we have started a new manufacturing unit for cleaning machines near Nanjangud, near Mysore. There, solar panel have been fixed. It can generate 125 kilowatt power, and that can take care of complete operation. So that is possible.
Right, so I think solutions like these, especially for bottling plants, have recently done something similar with the bottling plant that we have in our facility. Like they have warming tunnels. So you can have the heat exchange, you can use it as a heat pump to cool, for air conditioned spaces. So I think, not being from the essential industry, we are more of a luxury sort of a segment, because alcohol is a luxury to few. And I think we have to adapt really fast because, the kind of pace, the norms are changing, and the kind of revolution that's happening in terms of use of energy efficient measures. We should not be surprised if the government tomorrow levies a really high taxation on us or gives out some measures when it comes to pollution control that we might not be able to handle, and the cost would be really high. Like you said, you spent a woofing 61 lakhs just for putting in that plant. So I think, do you think when it comes to government or, otherwise that, can we draw a line and say, as an industry, that this is essential, that we have to kind of go for this one? Or do we just wait and watch, and do we say that, let us wait until the government comes on to this? So what do you see, or what do you foresee when it comes to distillation? Because you see that changes in the brewing industry, it's quite evident. So, but when you go to these distillation plants, you still have these, old, really, unmaintained sort of spaces there. So, what do you think, especially when it comes to distillation? Because, just giving an example of water, where you said this 3.5 liters of water for 1 liter of beer versus 10 liters when it comes to distillation. Obviously, you're getting the higher alcohol percentage, but I'm comparing apple to apple. So, where do you think that shift, or where do you think that, the drawing line will happen in the distillation industry?
In fact, in the distillery industry in India, the shift has already taken. The earlier, conventionally, the fermentation was with low efficient fermentation, I would say. But now, with the improved technologies, high gravity fermentation is going on. So, as a result, the alcohol percent in the fermented wash has increased somewhere from earlier 6 to 6.5% to up to 9% it has gone up. So by this, the energy consumption per liter of alcohol distillation has come down very substantially. That is going on. In addition to that, as I said, the biomethanation plant, most of the distilleries have adopted this because it gives fuel to you. Okay. And it has been made mandatory by the pollution control boards. So that has also been implemented. Now, the solar thing has to be implemented as soon as possible, which saves a lot of energy and carbon footprint. And apart from that, there are other ways in the other supply chain also, which we can discuss later. But this shift is already happened in the distillery industry.
Yeah, Priyanka, I just want to make a point. I think more than waiting for government to do what they have to do, like I said earlier, it's a mindset. But I think the mindset also, you have to realize, being sustainable is good business, because customers today are looking for breweries or distilleries or brands that are eco-conscious, that are sustainable, that are doing the right thing for Mother Earth. I think so. At the end of the day, it's good business. And if it's good business, you might as well do it.
Right. So, coming back to good business practices now, a classic example of carbon offsetting and conversion of food waste back into food for human consumption. This is the venture called Saving Grains, and Elizabeth, could you please elaborate on what you're doing currently, and what you're doing? What other measures could be taken when it comes to food waste? It's just not the spent grain, but anything and everything else which could be converted either for human consumption or, say, animal consumption. I mean, obviously, composting is something that we've been talking about for a very long time. But how much of it is actually being composted and how much is actually being utilized? Because I have seen at certain places they have these, electric heaters where the composting doesn't happen, it gets converted into manure. So, that doesn't make sense. I think what you're doing is fantastic, converting back into food and putting it back into the chain. So can you please elaborate us on that?
Saving Grains is an initiative that's looking to upcycle brewers' spent grain. And we work with Geist, who's given us the opportunity to use their spent grain and convert it into a flour. Sorry. Yeah, so while environmental factors are obviously beneficial to using product that's around, we're also looking to build a community-centered approach to upcycling spent grain or upcycling byproduct. And the reason is that in traditional circular systems that we see, we don't normally, we look at resources and how resources in material forms move around and get repurposed, but seldom do you see models in which people, which are the world's largest resource, fit in. And when we talk about people, it's not just as human labor, but also in traditional knowledge and in also what just simple practices that we can take that aren't very investment heavy to repurpose or build something. With spent grain, there's a lot of flavor, like with a lot of byproducts from other alcobev industries. And so the idea is to be able to capture that deliciousness in the product, but also the fact that it has nutrition, a good nutrition content, to be able to start working with it as a product as simple as things like chapatis, which you can add some spent grain in it to increase the nutritive value, and then also build up to it being something that can be used in our urban food systems as an addition food product.
So I'm sorry to interrupt, but apart from the fiber part of it, you know, when it comes to nutrients, what are the other nutrients that does it carry on, you know, when you're using the spent grain flour? What else, or what is the percentage of nutrients it would just carry along with?
Right. So the flour that we've measured out has about 46% fiber, about 23% protein, and less than 0.1% gluten. So, and it has a lot of enzymes and a lot of other nutrients in it that we're working on trying to understand better with, depending on the grain we have locally. But yeah, and so it, as a health food, it's great. As a flavor food, for me being a chef, it's been amazing to work with. And yeah, and the idea is that similar byproducts are generated in other industries as well. And so there's a lot of potential, and I think collaboration and opportunities and spaces like the way Geist has given us to experiment with, to be able to then work closely, understand the byproduct and create new things out of it. Yeah.
Right. So Mr. Narayan, since she's working, you know, with the spent grains given from your brewery, so do you think there could be in future, I'm just saying in future, looking at these breweries, having these measures in terms of not just spent grain, which obviously, I mean, spent grains, of course, but there's a limitation to it, like, you know, limitation in terms of nutrients. So for example, if you're going to use it in something that we have every day, which is a chapati, right? What about animal consumption? Because that's by and large, that's something which could be used. So do you know of someone who's doing that as well? Or do you know any brewery who's doing that? And what do you think about that?
I mean, I think every brewery that I know of is sending spent grain for animal feed. We've done it and we've given it away free of cost to a local farmer that has sheep, cattle, pigs, etc. that he rears for slaughter. When we met Elizabeth, this was the first time we realized that, wait a minute, maybe there's a trade-off that has to happen between human beings and providing what she would define as a circular economy, trying to get people involved to create nutritious products from spent products from the brewery. So we've allocated some part of our production of spent grain to Elizabeth for her endeavors. And it's going to be an interesting kind of trade-off when she becomes successful in terms of how much do we support the farmer who is feeding his livestock, to allowing somebody like Elizabeth to kind of create an industry where she's supporting low-income group people to create usable products for human beings. That's kind of one. We've also, by the way, done lots and lots of experiments with yeast, spent yeast, because spent yeast is very rich in selenium. And selenium, when added to poultry feed, hardens eggshells. So it makes it easier for the poultry farmer to transport eggs during transportation and have less breakage. So we've done experiments in that. We're also working with a young lady who is taking spent grain to make packaging products. And we've got 5, 6 experiments that we have done to create things like coasters and packaging materials and a whole bunch of things. And so I think there's going to be a trade-off at some point in time to figure out who do we support in this entire endeavor. But the good news is that there is so much of spent grain available from breweries that are just dumping it for compost. And I think there'll be plenty of stuff available for these kinds of measures, assuming that all of these things become successful at some point in time.
Thank you. So when you said, we're just telling about the spent grain part of it, like we spoke about carbon footprint, transportation across large distances. Now, when we're bottling a beer, we are getting the bottle from somewhere else, the cap, the label, and you're assembling it at one place and then again transporting it back. So the carbon footprint is quite large in that sense. And obviously we can think of, something like a microbrewery which has a lesser carbon footprint, but seldom do people think on those lines, seldom do people say, okay, let me go to a microbrewery where I can reduce my carbon footprint. Obviously they're not going to say that. So what measures in terms of transportation that could be taken, or in terms of the supply chain that we have currently, which could support which could support what we are doing? Obviously, there is an option of offsetting that, right? By taking various measures that are already in place, that people are working towards energy saving measures. But when it comes to these transport system or these complex supply chains, I know you mentioned that, you said you're very small to even look at that, but just wanted to understand the perspective that we're looking at, because the bottled spirit or the bottled beer or the bottled wine, they have a large footprint in terms of the transportation part. So what could be the measures, or would you suggest something, or do you know of someone who's doing something in that space?
Yeah, you are right that there is a lot of carbon footprint in supply chain, and a lot of measures can be taken here. As I think, one thing is we have to source our packing materials closer to the manufacturing unit, so that the distance traveled by the packing material will be short. So that way your carbon footprint will be less. And when you are shipping your finished product, especially in liquor bottling, we should try to club. Of course, we need to get the excise permission. We have to move and apprise them that this is environment friendly, reduces the carbon footprint. We have to club the consignments. Instead of small consignments sending to various destinations, we can club the consignments which are going in same direction. Say if something is going from Bangalore to Bombay, so on the way, whatever destinations we have to send, all these things, if they are small consignment, they have to be clubbed and sent together. And at each destination, it should be offloaded, and then it should go to the final destination.
You're suggesting like a carry and forward sort of a facility, or or I think that is something which is already active in some parts of the country. I mean, Maharashtra, I know for sure, has a carry and forward facility where all the be it beer or spirit or beer, whoever it is, they could just send it to a facility, a common facility, and from there it is forwarded into different parts in the state.
No, that is, they will have a bounded warehouse, from there they distribute. So that is one way of looking at it. The second way is, if small consignments are going to small places on the way, it should not be sent differently. They have to be clubbed, for which we need the excise permission for that. Because they, as of now, it is not allowed. Because for each permit, there is a time limit within which it has to be delivered. So if we start doing this, it will not reach the final destination within the time limit. So that's why the time limit has to be extended. this has to be taken up with the excise department. But this is a measure which can save a lot of carbon footprint. And the other thing is, even the material that we get, we should try to get full load. Part load will again will cost a lot of carbon. So that's why we have to get the full load, but it is an inventory you need to maintain. So you need to balance the two, your cost of inventory against your carbon footprint. You have to strike a balance and do it. So this is another way of doing it. And third one, what I am thinking is, although it is allowed, it is not much used extensively, that is transporting the consignment, finished goods, through goods trains. The fuel efficiency of goods trains is around 70% higher than the trucks. So your carbon footprint will drastically come down if you transport the material through goods trains. This is another way we can reduce in the supply chain.
Right. Mr. Narayan, you're over 15 years into this business now, and when it comes to, government norms, you're obviously complaining, all the time about them not being right. But what role do these authorities play when it comes to when you're taking up these measures? Do you think it's an obstruction, or do you think it's, they understand now and they kind of support you when you're doing something like, clubbing your orders, or how easy or how difficult it is when you are into the business and when you're dealing with these guys for like almost 15 years plus now?
Well, as everybody in this room knows, nothing in India is easy. And when it comes to Alcobev, it's even more difficult. I'll give you a small example. We send kegs from here into Telangana. When it goes from here to Hyderabad, for example, you're not allowed to hit the state of Andhra Pradesh. You have to basically circumvent Andhra Pradesh and take a really circuitous route because you cannot enter the border of Andhra. So what would have taken me 8 hours or 10 hours to have the keg sent across is taking us 15 to 17 hours to just get it across because you cannot hit a border of a state, number one. Number two, we are allowed to send per depot a single truck, even though it goes as a part load. So if, for example, the truck can take 100 kegs, we can only send 20 kegs or 30 kegs in a truck because it has to go to one particular depot because you cannot club consignments, right? Third, it's ironical, but I don't know where this heritage comes from. All of us in the Alcobev space are guilty until proven innocent, as opposed to the other way around, right? So there is a guard that accompanies the truck all the way to the Telangana border, gets down and then comes back from Telangana back to Bangalore. Complete waste of time. But this is the way it is. So I think in terms of policy, there has to be, and I think it'll be incumbent on definitely companies like us, because it's in our vested interest to do it, but hopefully for the greater good. There is no reason why. I mean, we are a country of technology. There's no reason why you can't use tech to make sure that you can reduce your carbon footprint for your deliveries that you do outside your state. Now for us, it's good to say things like, I want to source labels or cans or whatever else closer to where we are. The truth of the matter is, you can't do it because our cans come from Aurangabad. We can't source it anywhere close by. Our labels come locally, etc. But I'm just saying we have constraints in terms of where we can procure raw material from. But that aside, what we can do is try to offset it by doing things like the water conservation, potentially when we can afford it to put solar, support people like Elizabeth so we can kind of get more of the offsetting of those carbon losses that we encounter during these other things that we do.
So I think, it is somewhere that we need to understand that where we are right now and what we can at our best do at this moment and just take that up. I'm just reiterating that, alcohol industry, it being a non-essential industry, we are essentially into the luxury segment, only those who can afford to consume. Obviously, there are people from different stratas of society and different segments who consume alcohol, but it's not an essential item for sure. So I think that pressure on the alcohol industry is kind of building up, and we in our own right spirit are doing what we can do. We definitely need more government intervention into this, policy changes, which obviously we have to initiate because we know the best what we need, right? I think that is something that I would want to conclude from this. And also ventures like saving grains, which is something that it kind of blew my mind when I said, oh my god, this is a carbon negative food. That is something that kind of excited me. And I think this is going to be on my mind for a very, very long time. I'm going to grab those packets from you. So I think that was what the gist of this entire topic is about. And sustainability, like he said, is your mindset, right? When you are in the mindset, when you're picking your things, when you're picking local, it's because you're thinking local. I think that's where this goes to.
I do want to add, sometimes when you attend these sustainability panels and stuff, it kind of gets a little boring and you're like, yeah, I'm here, whatever. But the truth of the matter is, every one of you need to realize that going forward, these demands are going to be made on you by your customers. You will have to find a way to be more eco-friendly because the younger generation that you're all going to be selling to will demand this more and more now than ever before.
So Vikram, I just want to change this topic to sustainability, the need of the hour. I think that's what it should be. That is the need of the hour. I think we need to get to that, and we need to start working on it. So we open for questions. Any questions from the audience, please? Any questions?
What do you think should be the standard policy change from the central and the state government that can be neutral for businesses like us?
Sorry, when you say neutral, what did you mean?
What I meant is that doesn't affect the state or the central government policies, which means that irrespective of whatever breweries or the spirits that you're manufacturing, what should be one standard that we should pick as manufacturers to be sustainable in the industry? Or basically in a very short phrase, it means what is a long-term policy that we can arrive at, that we can propose to the state or the central government, which can remain at least for a decade or two. Because we are in the business which is on today's basis, and today is never an ending day, right? So what should be that one statement that can make us be there?
First off, I think no government will accept any loss of revenue, right? So that is clear. So they have to be revenue neutral in whatever they do. I found that it is really difficult to get policies amended by governments in order to favor businesses, for example, to become more sustainable, right? And so it's really difficult to do that. But one thing that has worked in the past is if there has been another, and by the way, beer and alcohol is a state government issue, it's not a central government issue, right? So it has to be dependent on the state to do what is right. So what can work is effectively seeing what the others have done and try to implement the best policies. Like, for example, Mr. Bhavanisankar was saying in the morning today about the things that they've done. Many of them have been implemented by looking at states like Karnataka, for example. But there has to be a little bit more transparent / available information that excise departments can look at and say, oh, by the way, West Bengal's done this, or Tamil Nadu has done this, or Telangana has done this, and try to potentially incorporate those ideas that have worked for the other groups at the other departments.
So, do you think in any way we can arrive at a policy, whether it is central or the state government, that we say if we are contributing to such an extent of a revenue, ABC, we should be allowed a certain extent of market penetration? Do you think we can arrive at such a situation?
I'd like to comment on that. Unfortunately, as per the Bombay Prohibition Act, this is valid in Maharashtra. I'm not sure about Karnataka. The Bombay Prohibition Act 1949, there's similar acts in the country where alcohol is a prohibitory product. You cannot market alcohol as such. You cannot advertise, promote, or propagate. So when we are talking about market penetration, or say, we are giving certain revenue, I mean, see the irony of this situation, that when you pick up a cigarette packet, there's this ugly picture, and I never touch that, saying that it causes cancer. And similarly, thankfully on the alcohol bottles, we don't have that yet, So I think the challenge lies in getting things in small bits and parts, then kind of arriving at a policy on a national level.
Priyanka, we've been probably the only next industry, I don't want to mention the first one, the next industry who has been living ages in the market, which is alcohol. I'm just putting it on the category. Now the challenge that today we face after the pandemic is that we cannot directly advertise. Even before pandemic, I think we had restrictions on advertising as an alcohol industry. What I'm trying to understand is there any way that the decision makers can go up to the state or the central government and say, if we are giving you a certain revenue to hold our stance in a certain state or the power in central, which most of us do. Most of the distilleries pay a very good amount to the government, and then retail we pay a very good amount to the government. Do we have a panel who can go up and say that we need to be recognized? Do we have that?
I'm not sure about the panel, but if there is something like this, it's going to work.
Question is, why are we shying away from saying
No.
we are yet another industry?
We are not shying away, as I am saying. We are not shying away. When I said if there is a panel or something like this going to be formed and going to speak about the industry, I will be on the first person on the panel for sure. But you've been into the industry for 30 years. You've seen the challenges and
Yes.
the government things.
See,
so what do you have to say about this?
We have what is called AIDA, All India Distillers and Brewers Association, which has moved several issues to the central government to make changes, including the pollution control measures and several things. But here, central government has limited say as far as alcohol, potable alcohol is concerned. It is the states. So there is an association through which we can raise our voice and we can take our issues to the government. Even at state level, the associations are there, through which even excise policies, to an extent, I don't say full, for the reasons well known to you, all policies can't be changed through the association. But a few changes have been effected through this association. That is number one. The other thing what I wanted to suggest here is, we should have centralized excise policy. Now, although it is state subject, state government should not lose the revenue, but now, earlier sale tax was state subject. Each state was charging separate sale tax, separate rate of sale tax. But now GST has come. Before that, we had, what is that? VAT was there. So that change has taken place. Similarly, we should have a central excise for alcohol industry and common policy should be there so that, as he was telling, you need not have to deroute, take a lot of long route to reach a destination, and free movement of trucks through each state border should be there, through which, by which the carbon footprint also will be reduced, and several headaches which we are facing now will also be resolved. So this is somehow, this is actually should be pushed from all the states. So all state association along with All India Association should move to the government, and without losing the state tax, how it can be effected, just like as it was done in sales tax.
Yeah, yeah. So I think we'll sum it up. It's a joint effort by obviously people from the industry working, policy makers and the consumer itself, and definitely the future and the present is sustainability. And I think we kind of take it more seriously now on being, even if we are like even bartenders or, people who are working the ground level in this industry, to those who are decision makers. I think that's the key, and we definitely the future is bright if sustainability, is what we take in our stride. I think that's my closing statement. Thank you so much for bearing with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Priyanka. Could I request Mani to come on stage to hand them their mementos? Narayan, hold on for a second, please. Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you, Dr. Bhavanishankar.
This is to Priyanka and Mr. Narayan. Priyanka and Mr. Narayan.
Yeah.